Flames roar, metal screams, and time fractures into a single thunderous heartbeat. In Formula One, disaster is never more than a breath away, and when it strikes, that breath can feel like an eternity. One wrong move, one mechanical failure, and the line between life and death blurs into chaos. Yet, in the midst of wreckage and fire, some drivers defy the odds, walking away from moments that should have ended everything. These are the men who stared into the abyss, felt its pull, and still emerged. This is the story of surviving the unsurvivable. Buckle up, because it's about to begin. Romain Grosjean's miraculous escape. Bahrain, 2020. Lap 1 of the Bahrain Grand Prix, November 29th, 2020. The desert air is already thick with tension. Cars jostle for position, tires squealing, sparks flying. Every driver knows turn 3 can be tricky, but nobody expects what's about to happen. Romain Grosjean, in his Haas, darts across the track, trying to avoid a mid-pack scramble. At 137 miles per hour, he clips Daniil Kvyat's AlphaTauri. The contact catapults him towards the barriers with horrifying force. And then, impact. The car doesn't just crumple, it splits in two. In an instant, the fuel ignites. A towering orange fireball erupts, swallowing the wreckage. Flames so intense that even through television cameras you can feel the heat radiating. The entire world freezes. Commentators go silent. This is the kind of crash where the headlines are written in past tense. For 28 seconds, Grosjean is trapped in the inferno. 28 seconds is nothing in a normal day. But inside a fire hot enough to melt metal, it's an eternity. The heat pushes past 1,000 degrees Celsius. His visor fogs instantly. He can barely see. His gloves, bright red before the crash, begin to blister and char. The human brain isn't built for moments like this. Panic would be the natural response. But Romain's thoughts sharpen to a single point. Not the race, not his career, but his children. Later, he would tell reporters, "I thought of my kids, and I told myself, I cannot die today." That thought became his lifeline. It wasn't just willpower keeping him alive. It was the result of years of relentless work on F1 safety. Innovations that drivers once criticized, even ridiculed. The halo, the titanium wishbone arch above the cockpit, took the brunt of the steel barrier's force, shielding Grosjean's head. Before 2018, this device didn't exist in F1. Many argued it ruined the look of the cars. Grosjean himself wasn't a fan. But on this day, it's the only reason the barrier didn't crush his skull. The survival cell, a carbon fiber monocoque that serves as the driver's cocoon, remained intact even as the rest of the Haas was obliterated. It kept the fire at bay, buying him those precious seconds. His fireproof Nomex suit, designed to withstand extreme temperatures, did exactly that, holding off the worst of the flames long enough for him to make his escape. Even then, the damage was immediate. Second-degree burns to both hands and ankles. The medical car, driven by Dr. Ian Roberts and medical delegate Alan van der Merwe, was already trailing the pack on lap 1, as per F1 protocol. They were at the scene in seconds. Roberts ran toward the flames without hesitation. Marshals rushed forward with extinguishers. The barrier between life and death in Formula One is measured in seconds, and Grosjean's rescue team didn't waste a single one. Inside the cockpit, Grosjean struggles. The steering wheel is gone, ripped away in the impact. He fights with the seatbelts, feeling the heat baking his skin. The world outside is just fire and smoke. He remembers later, "I saw death coming." But somehow he finds a gap in the flames. He braces, hauls himself up, and climbs out. Out of a fireball steps a human silhouette, flames licking at his suit as he leaps over the guardrail. Waiting hands catch him. He's rushed to the medical car. The entire paddock breathes again. His injuries, burns to his hands and ankles, and a twisted spine from the impact. His life saved by a combination of human courage, engineering genius, and sheer will to survive. After the crash, Grosjean's story became more than a sports headline. It became a symbol of how far F1 safety had come. A crash that would have been fatal just 10 years earlier ended with the driver walking, Yes, walking away. And the irony? Grosjean had once been one of the Halo's biggest critics. I wasn't a fan of the Halo when it was introduced, he admitted afterwards, but I would not be here without it. That moment silenced almost every detractor the safety device ever had. When asked if he was afraid to race again, Grosjean smiled. You don't get to choose when you die, but you can choose how you live. That crash ended his Formula One career, but it didn't end his racing career. Months later, he was back on track in IndyCar, proving that courage and passion burn brighter than any fire. The images of that day, Grosjean's burning Haas, the wall of flames, and then the impossible sight of him climbing free, are now part of F1 history. They are proof that in a sport where speed tempts fate every lap, survival is sometimes the greatest victory of all. Could any human possibly endure flames and live? Grosjean did, but he's not the first, and he won't be the last. Let's step back in time to another fireball, decades earlier, where survival was even less likely. Niki Lauda, the 1976 Nürburgring Inferno, August 1st, 1976, the Nürburgring. 14 miles of twisting, unforgiving asphalt snaking through Germany's Eifel Mountains. Jackie Stewart once called it the Green Hell, and today, it's living up to the name. The track is a nightmare, a mix of wet and dry sections, rain spitting on some corners while others remain bone dry. In the 1970s, there's no such thing as a safety car to regroup the pack after hazards. There are barely any barriers. Medical help is miles away, and in those conditions, one mistake can be fatal. On lap 2, Formula One world champion Niki Lauda is pushing hard in his Ferrari 312 T2. He's not the kind of driver to back off for a little rain, but as he rounds the fast left-hand kink at Bergwerk, something goes wrong. The rear of the Ferrari snaps violently. The car spears off the track, slams into an embankment, and ricochets back onto the circuit, straight into the path of oncoming cars. The impact ruptures the fuel tank. Gasoline sprays, and within a heartbeat, the Ferrari is an inferno. Flames roar into the cockpit. The fire is so intense it's visible from hundreds of meters away. Lauda is trapped. His helmet is ripped off in the chaos, a failure that will later lead to stricter helmet standards. He tries to unbuckle his harness, but the heat and force of the crash have pinned him. Inside the car, toxic smoke fills his lungs. His face and scalp begin to burn. Every breath sears his airways. And then, something almost unheard of in motorsport happens. Drivers stop racing. Arturo Merzario, Brett Lunger, Guy Edwards, and Harold Erdl pull their own cars to a halt. They don't hesitate. They don't think about championship points or personal safety. They run into the flames. Merzario reaches the cockpit first, trying to undo Lauda's belts. Lunger grabs at the other side. Flames lick their suits, burning their hands. The heat is so fierce that their visors begin to warp. Still, they don't let go. Together, they wrench Lauda from the wreckage, dragging him to safety just as marshals arrive with extinguishers. The damage is catastrophic. Lauda's face is badly burned. His right ear is almost gone. The skin on his scalp and cheeks is destroyed. His eyelids are melted away. But the worst injury is inside. He has inhaled superheated toxic fumes, scorching his lungs. He's airlifted to hospital, slipping into a coma within hours. His breathing is labored. His blood is poisoned with carbon monoxide. Doctors give him almost no chance of survival. A priest is called to administer last rites. The racing world prepares for the obituary of a reigning world champion. But Lauda doesn't die. He wakes. His first words? Asking about the race. For 6 weeks he undergoes excruciating treatment, skin grafts, surgeries, and daily cleaning of raw burns. Every dressing change feels like fire all over again. His face is permanently altered, but his spirit untouched. Then comes the unthinkable. 6 weeks after almost burning alive, still swathed in bandages, Lauda announces he's returning. Not next year. Not when he's ready. Now. At the Italian Grand Prix in Monza, he walks into the paddock, bandages peeking from under his helmet, blood still oozing from his wounds. Doctors warn him his skin could tear open inside the cockpit. He doesn't care. He qualifies fifth, he finishes fourth. In a field of uninjured men, Lauda beats almost all of them. Every lap is agony. Every turn feels like his helmet is tearing the skin from his head. But the moment he steps out of the car, it's clear. He hasn't just survived. He's defied the odds in a way that will be told for decades. The 1976 season becomes one of the most dramatic in F1 history, culminating in a rain-soaked showdown in Japan where Lauda, still healing, withdraws mid-race, valuing his life over the championship. That decision cements his status not just as a racer, but as a man who knew where courage ended and recklessness began. The crash changes Formula One forever. Safety standards for helmets are tightened. Fire-resistant suits improve dramatically. Medical response protocols are overhauled. And the sport starts to truly understand the need for quick intervention in remote tracks. For Niki Lauda, the scars never fade. He wears a cap in public for the rest of his life, not to hide them, but to own them. They're proof that he was tested by the worst the sport could offer, and he came back. Lauda once said, "From the day of my accident, I was ready for more. I never feared death again because I'd already been so close." And maybe that's why, even after retiring, he stayed in the paddock, mentoring young drivers, running teams, and reminding everyone that in Formula One, bravery isn't measured by how fast you go. It's measured by how you face the fire. Grosjean had 28 seconds in fire. Lauda had nearly a minute. But what happens when a crash leaves you not in flames, but so broken that survival seems impossible? Let's meet the man whose body endured forces no human should survive. Martin Donnelly, David Purley, the 179.8-gram miracle, 1977. David Purley. He was born with danger in his blood. The son of a decorated military officer, he followed family tradition, training as a soldier, serving in the parachute regiment. In the army, he learned discipline, resilience, and how to keep moving when everything in you says stop. His first brush with death didn't come behind the wheel. It came falling from the sky. During a parachute jump, his canopy tangled mid-air. For seconds, he plummeted toward the ground in a free-fall spiral. Somehow, the tangle loosened just enough for a partial deployment. He walked away, shaken, but alive. Then Purley traded his rifle for a steering wheel. Formula One in the 1970s was a sport where survival wasn't guaranteed, not even in practice sessions. Silverstone, 1977. It's a routine practice lap in the Lec CRP1, a car designed and built by his own small team. On the hangar straight, Purley's right foot is flat on the throttle, but when he approaches the braking zone for Stowe Corner, nothing happens. The pedal is jammed wide open. In a fraction of a second, Purley realizes the truth. He has no brakes, no time, no escape road. The barriers are rushing toward him at over 100 miles per hour. Impact. The Lec CRP1 hits head-on. The car comes to a complete stop in just 26 inches. That's a deceleration measured later at 179.8 G, the highest ever survived by a human outside of spaceflight. To put that in perspective, fighter pilots can black out at 9 G. At 179 grams, the forces should have been instantly fatal. The human body isn't built to endure that kind of violence. Bones snap, ribs shatter. His lungs bruise and fill with blood. His legs and arms are broken. Internal injuries mount with every heartbeat. Marshals sprint to the wreckage, expecting to find a body. Instead, they find Purley, alive, barely conscious, but breathing. Against all logic, his heart hasn't stopped. His will hasn't given up. Surgeons call it a miracle. Recovery is brutal. Months in hospital, multiple operations, endless physiotherapy. Every step hurts. Every breath reminds him of the crash. And yet, he comes back. Not content to fade away, Purley returns to racing, because for him, risk wasn't something to avoid. It was the measure of a life worth living. In the end, David Purley's survival wasn't just about luck or strong bones. It was about a mind that refused to quit, no matter how impossible the odds. Purley's crash proved the human body can survive almost unimaginable forces. But what happens when a crash doesn't just push the limits? It leaves your body broken beyond repair, yet your spirit refuses to die. That's the story of Martin Donnelly. Martin Donnelly, ejected, beaten, still alive. September 28, 1990. The midday sun beats down on Circuito de Jerez in southern Spain. The air shimmers over the tarmac as the roar of Formula One engines bounces off the grandstands. It's qualifying day for the Spanish Grand Prix, and every driver is chasing the perfect lap. Martin Donnelly, 26 years old, sits strapped inside the tight confines of his green and yellow Lotus 102. For the young Northern Irishman, every moment in Formula One is a fight. He isn't in the best car and his team is struggling financially, but he's here, and that means everything. Helmet visor down, eyes forward, he pushes the throttle. The V12 Judd engine screams, propelling him down the start-finish straight at 176 miles per hour. The world outside the cockpit blurs into streaks of color. At these speeds, every heartbeat is a calculation. Every twitch of the steering wheel is a knife edge between glory and disaster. And then it happens, a sudden bang. The steering feels wrong. The Lotus jolts violently to the right, a catastrophic suspension failure. There's no time to react, no way to save it. The car slams into the barriers at full speed. The sound is horrific. Metal tearing, carbon fiber splintering, the high-pitched scream of destruction. The chassis disintegrates instantly, scattering debris across the track like shrapnel. And then, something almost unimaginable. The impact rips Donnelly from the car. His body is thrown into the open air, spinning, tumbling, before slamming onto the track like a discarded rag doll. Silence for a moment. The kind of silence that falls when everyone watching knows they may have just seen a man's life end. Track marshals sprint onto the scene, waving red flags to halt the session. The medical car arrives in seconds. They find Donnelly lying twisted on the tarmac, motionless. His legs are grotesquely bent at unnatural angles. His helmet visor hides his face, but medics already know the list of injuries will be long, perhaps fatal. Fractures everywhere. Severe head trauma. Internal bleeding. And then, the worst news. His heart has stopped. The medical team works frantically. They restart it. His body shudders back into a fragile rhythm. It stops again. For the second time in minutes, they drag him back from the brink. He is loaded into a helicopter, the rotor blades chopping the air, lifting him from the track and racing toward the nearest trauma unit. In the hospital, surgeons fight for hours to stabilize him. Donnelly's injuries are so extensive that some staff believe he may never walk again, if he wakes at all. To protect his brain and allow his body to heal, doctors place him into a medically induced coma. For days, he hovers in that liminal space between life and death. When he finally wakes, the crash is gone from his memory. The last thing he remembers is getting into the car, tightening his belts, ready for another shot at a fast lap. Everything after that is a blank space he will never fill. The recovery is long, brutal, and relentless. Metal rods are inserted into his legs to hold the shattered bones in place. Physiotherapy sessions push him to the edge of pain. He relearns how to walk, each step a battle against both injury and frustration. The dream of returning to Formula One fades with each passing month. For Donnelly, that realization is another kind of crash. Racing isn't just a job. It's an identity, a purpose, the thing that defines you. When it's gone, the silence can be deafening. But Donnelly refuses to vanish from the sport. He channels his experience, his hard-won knowledge, into coaching and mentoring. Young drivers sit across from him, eyes wide, as he explains the razor-thin margins of an F1 corner, the mental discipline needed to survive at 200 miles per hour, the respect you must have for a car that can kill you in less than a second. He never tells them not to chase speed, he simply makes sure they understand its cost. Today, decades later, Martin Donnelly stands in the paddock, not as a driver, but as a survivor. His body still carries the scars, visible and hidden, from that afternoon in Jerez. But his voice carries something else: authority, wisdom, and the kind of credibility that can only come from staring death in the face and walking away. The sport has changed since 1990. Cars are stronger, circuits are safer, medical response is faster. Every improvement is written in part with stories like Donnelly's. His accident is a case study shown to new engineers, marshals, and medical staff. It's a grim reminder that F1 safety isn't theoretical. It's paid for in blood, bone, and seconds snatched from the jaws of disaster. Surviving isn't always victory. Sometimes it means accepting that the life you planned is gone and building something new from the wreckage. Martin Donnelly didn't just survive that crash in Spain. He rebuilt himself, piece by piece, and found a different finish line. David Coulthard, surviving the sky. May 2nd, 2000 began like any other travel day for David Coulthard. The Scottish Formula One driver was heading to Spain for the upcoming Grand Prix, accompanied by his fiancée, American model Heidi Wichlinski, and his longtime personal trainer, Andy Matthews. They boarded a sleek private Learjet in Farnborough, England, a routine trip for a man used to life in the fast lane. The flight was smooth until the approach into Lyon, France, where they planned a stopover. As the Learjet descended, the pilots reported a landing gear issue. There was no panic. Pilots handle such warnings with calm precision. But within minutes, that calm dissolved into catastrophe. The landing was hard, far harder than any passenger could imagine. The jet smashed onto the runway, skidded violently, then veered into the grass. In seconds, the aircraft's belly ruptured. Sparks became flames. The cabin filled with smoke and the smell of burning fuel. The impact killed both pilots instantly. In the cabin, Coulthard was jolted awake to the violent reality. They were trapped in a burning plane. Bruised but conscious, he ripped off his seatbelt, disoriented in the acrid haze. Instinct took over. He pulled Heidi clear, then helped Andy out of the twisted fuselage. The three stumbled away from the wreckage, hearts pounding, barely able to process the sight. The jet now fully engulfed in fire, the lives of the two men at the front lost in an instant. For most, such an ordeal would demand months of recovery. Not for Coulthard. Just 4 days later, on May 7th, he was back behind the wheel of his McLaren MP4/15 at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. The smell of aviation fuel still lingered in his memory. The image of the burning Learjet was fresh. But as the visor dropped, focus replaced fear. The race began. Coulthard drove with the same precision and aggression as always, weaving through the pack, maintaining relentless pace. Every lap was a mental test, not of racing skill but of compartmentalizing trauma. When the checkered flag waved, he crossed the line second, securing a podium finish that was as much a victory of the mind as of the body. In interviews afterward, he was philosophical. You can't dwell on what might have been. You have to live. It wasn't just a race result. It was a message. That resilience can carry a person from the wreckage of a burning plane to the glory of the podium in less than a week. Every story here is a collision of courage, fate, and science. Moments where survival isn't luck, but the product of split-second engineering and unbreakable human will. These aren't just racing accidents. They're battles fought in fire, metal, and sheer determination. From fiery infernos to violent crashes, from mangled wrecks to triumphant podium finishes, each tale reveals the extraordinary resilience of drivers who refuse to be defeated by disaster. They embody the razor-thin margin between life and death, and the relentless spirit to fight through it. If these stories gave you chills, like and subscribe for more of motorsport's most unbelievable comebacks.